Welcome to the Journal Star Podcast. I'm sports editor Wes Huett with, as always, Adam Duvall and John Komosa.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
We are in the throes of March Madness. I think I've already been sick and then healthy again, and I'm starting to feel some more symptoms of it again. Joko, hopefully yours is cleared up.
Yeah, it's coming back a little bit, getting the sniffles. So
yeah, I got I have ram fever now, though, I think.
Ram fever.
Manual Rams. We'll start with them because it's our team, it's our city. So tell me a little about the Rams. They had a nice win last night over Glen Ellen, Glenbard South. Mouthful.
It was Manuel just running a layup line, honestly, down the stretch. But it looked close to start. I think, Manuel won 69-52, but it's close in the second quarter. It was 30-26. After a couple free throws by Kate Hardekey for Glenbard. And then, Pee Wee, they started to press a little bit on him, and Pee Wee had a couple breakaway layups off some steals. And then, to close out the third quarter, Quintez Edwards scored about 7 straight points, to give him a 11-point lead going into the fourth. And then from that point forward, same thing. Glenbard just trying to apply that, full court pressure, and just
it's not going to go over too well.
No, it wasn't. And Manuel just looking down court and finding guys, and I was telling you earlier, every time I'd look down and mark a bucket for somebody, they'd be on the other end, with another layup. It's like you couldn't even look up and catch it in time. So it's just Manuel, they're just a team like that you can't run with, in that situation. So
what were they doing? One thing that stood out in your story to me was that they shut out Glenbard South's 6'8" guy.
Yeah.
What were they doing to him specifically?
Yeah, Ryan Harrington, big 6'8" senior center. So their guards. They had three different guards: Tommy Powers, Cole Hardekey, and then Kevin Enright, that were playing well for him. Those kids are pretty good. They were driving to the basket. But Harrington, they had Storm hanging on him. They brought in Joshua Ivory, 6'7", off the bench a little bit. They were kind of going back and forth with him. And honestly, they just weren't letting him. They didn't allow him.
Were they denying him his touches? Or
yeah, but Glenbard didn't look to him much either, because they were kind of keeping him out of the paint too. And I've seen a little bit of Harrington's game. He's got a little bit of a jump shot, but it just seemed like they weren't giving him enough space down there to kind of allow.
Joko, do you think they'll implore that same strategy against East St. Louis's Terrence Hargrove?
Yeah, that's what Coleman was saying today on the teleconference. Key to the game on Friday is just contain Hargrove. Obviously, he's an outstanding player, all-state worthy. But if Manuel can deny the ball on him, kind of take away touches from him, I think Manuel's got a shot, because they can run with any team. They've proved that right now. But yeah, the main thing is containing him.
Well, those who don't know, Manuel advances to the state semifinals. They'll take on East St. Louis, 1 p.m. Friday at Carver Arena, and we're talking about Terrence Hargrove, 6'7" senior for the Flyers. We can talk a little bit about that game already. Let's jump right into it. With last week, Chicago Bogan, who's also a fellow 3A semifinalist, upset Morgan Park with former Manual player Adam Miller. Was the prohibitive favorite to win 3A. I think everybody thought that, and now that they're out of the way, but this is a wide open field, I think.
It is. And, looking back at East St. Louis's super sectional win, that's a very good Southeast team, Springfield Southeast team that they beat. That hadn't lost in, 2 months, I believe. Yeah. And, they beat them by 5 or 6, and it's like, okay, now that you almost want to say, outside of Manual playing really well and Bogan, East St. Louis seems like that could be a favorite coming in. And, looking back at East St. Louis's schedule, they only lost to Curry. I think they lost to Curry twice, but they were both close games, and Curry's a 4A. Curie.
As Michael O'Brien said,
he cleared that up.
Named after
Curie.
Mary Curie.
Yeah.
So, yes. That's,
I gotta get that right. So Curie, 34-1, and I think their only loss was to a team out of state. But, East St. Louis beat Curie during the year.
Okay.
No, sorry. They lost to Curie. I'm thinking of their opponent. They beat Belleville West,
West,
who is defending 4A champion. So you're looking at that. You're 2 close games at Curie and a win over Belleville.
Right.
That's a very good team, and we've seen what Belleville's done, throughout the year with E.J. Liddell. So we'll see. I think the Rams pressure them, and just between their 2 guys, Rolando Pee Wee Brown and Quintez Edwards, they can keep making their shots. And
I like the semifinal, the 3-peaters versus the 4-peaters.
Yeah, that's right.
East St. Louis who won the 3.
Right. Yeah.
And then Manual came along and won the 4 in a row. So that's
2 of the most storied programs in the history of the state will be playing.
Absolutely. And I mean, Wes, you were let's see
if we have the
sheet.
video. If you're going to watch the video, a list of Manual's state finals appearances takes up more than a page. They've been there. This will be their 23rd appearance. 15th trophy or 16th?
This will be their 16th, a state record.
Extending the record. They already had it. They had 15, and then Peoria High is second with 14. Cradle of the crossover, as Alexander Wolf once said, Peoria. And it's the same thing of Richwoods has got a couple of trophies on top of that. So crazy. This Manual. It's always fun to me when Manual makes runs, even as an East Peoria grad. Bingo. That it was such a fun rivalry with that school back in the 90s, because you respected the hell out of them being so great, and you're losing to them, but you're like, you couldn't have lost. I mean, you didn't like losing to them, but you didn't mind it because they earned it, and these kids are all from the south side and working. I just always everybody that I've had run-ins with Manual, Tim Kinney, Eric Booth. I don't know Willie Coleman that well. Westendorf, just great guys, such icons of Peoria basketball, and it's really cool to see Manual back at state. It's always fun to see Manual at state. It's fun to see Peoria High at state too. I mean, just such a great basketball city, and when we can celebrate it, it's always very nice.
I like seeing former players on Manual staff, guys that I covered. Marvin Jordan, Paris Gully.
I covered Paris Gully. I think you covered Jordan, right?
Yeah, both guys that have been to the state finals know,
that's right.
What the experience is about, and can share that knowledge with these guys that are first time guys. I mean, you step on the floor at Carver Arena and those new bright lights. I mean, that can take you a while to
Well, John, you were telling me about a player.
Yeah, so I mean, bouncing right off of what you just said, I think it's really cool. Those 2 guys can share, like you said, share that with the players. But the guy who guarded Ryan Harrington of Glenbard South yesterday, Storm Hangen, he's a forward for them, and he was actually a ball boy on that Manual team when Goalie and Marvin Jordan played at state against Robinson. I think they got second. So I think they're probably telling him, now you're in that position as a player, and I think that's cool. Sitting there, as a younger kid and watching those guys and wanting to be in that spotlight. And now that he's here on the court, and it's kind of that experience where you weren't a player, but you were there, and now you kind of get to experience that. And those guys can obviously be telling you, we were here. Here's what to expect. And I think it's just cool. You have some different mentors on the bench, along with Coleman, who also played in his finals. So,
well, John, you've just by mere happenstance, you've actually covered 5 Manual postseason games just because of the way the scheduling went. And what is it about for people who maybe might be watching them for the first time this Friday on TV, or they're going to go down to Carver or whatever? What kind of roles do the top players play? What kind of game do you expect from them? What do they want to do, basically?
Yeah. So. First, kind of start. This is a question asked by a lot of different people, especially in the teleconference. A couple different people asked this: what turned around for Manual? They ended the year with those 3 straight losses, and they asked Coleman what changed. What changed that this team is rolling now through the playoffs, especially beating state-ranked Notre Dame, for getting a state. It's like what changed? And he said that he told the guys, it's win or go home now. You know, it's one game, and Quintez Edwards being a senior, you could just see the fight in that kid. And he said, I don't want to go home. You know, and he says that he's came to the bench. He came to the bench yesterday when they were only up 4. He came to the bench during the Notre Dame game when they were down 3 late, and he said, guys, I'm not ready to go home. He wants to make it downstate. He's never been down there, and that was their goal. And it seemed like, he said, all the guys kind of bought in, and, you know, that was their goal to push through, and they've showed that. But I think the main thing to look for in Manual, you got really good players. They move the ball really well. Okay. Rolando Brown and Quintez both, you know, great passers, but they're also those guys that can come off screens and create their own shots. Okay. Rolando Brown's got a really nice jump shot, as well as Quintez. They can both step out and shoot the 3, and not to mention just get to the basket. I mean, we're talking through contact. They can get to the basket, just backdoor layups. Their teammates looking for them. They finish just really well at the rim, and they got quick hands just getting steals, you know, for breakaways. But there's a lot of guys that do other things too outside of the, you know, the 2 stars that we've been talking about. Storm Hangen, who I mentioned. You know, he's not a guy that's a look to shoot first guy, but he does look for that pass. And even yesterday, he had a couple just really nice. Quintez had a backdoor cut. Amarion Bird had a backdoor, and he just threads the needle right there and puts it right on point for those guys. And especially Amarion Bird, you know, he just gets to the bucket too, looks for that backdoor. And Myrese Bird just. Coleman said the same thing about him. He can score, but he's kind of said, you're a point guard. You know, you're undersized point guard. Be that guy that's gonna, you know, set up our scorers. So he's kind of looked in these last couple 3-4 games now. He's, you know, found Brown a little more, found Edwards, and guys off the bench like Marshawn Tolliver, who's a sophomore. You know, he can shoot it. So that they have weapons. You know, they have different weapons.
What it sounds like, and this seems to be a common denominator among successful high school teams, is settling into roles.
Yep.
I've said that a lot. It's something that we can segue over to the small school tournament last week. Something that impressed me so much with Providence St. Mel was their ability to just, I think once kids know their expectation and what their jobs are, they can go 100% with their job, because they know, this is what I have to do, this is what you want from me. Like you mentioned about the point guard thing. Point guard, you get these guys the ball, you 2 guys create your own shot. When kids know their expectations and know the roles, that's when they can fully thrive. And
I think that does, I mean, it resonates across boys and girls.
Oh, sure.
Especially Morton, for example.
Yeah.
Morton has had star power through the last 5 years, but there are role players, girls like Kaylee Jones and Courtney Jones and just Raquel Frakes and girls who just come in and just know exactly what they need to do and don't try to do too much.
Right.
And just, you know, quite literally fill their role.
Well, as what I think this is what takes good players and makes them great is good coaching, and that's the one thing, honestly, I believe that some of the downswing of Peoria basketball has been some of the churning over of coaches and find, because guys leaving from maybe moving on to different jobs, or guys switching up things or leaving for different reasons or whatever, and so sometimes it's against, not necessarily a bad thing, but I think Willie may be starting to build some of his own thing there at Manual, and now it's nice that they're starting to come on, and when kids start to pick up the roles at this time of year, obviously that's always good. But we'll use that as a segue to last week, and we want to recap that a little bit. We would be remiss if we didn't mention the Chicago sweep of last week. Chicago, Providence, St. Mel, and Chicago Orr won the 1A and 2A title. Adam was there all weekend working with the IHSA. John, you were covering it when you weren't over watching Manual. Any takeaways from the small school weekend, Adam, from your point of view?
Chicago Orr is an impressive, I'll say it again, impressive team.
Are they impressive?
Yes, correct. I mean, that it's kind of the nature of the beast, I would say, high school basketball, maybe especially in Chicago, maybe nationwide. But there was only one guy who was a part of all 3 of those state championships. There
Really?
There are 4 other guys. There was at the press conferences post game, the 5 starters will come with a coach.
Yeah.
There was only one guy up there that was a part of all 3 titles.
Wow.
The other 4 guys were all transfers.
Wow.
So that kind of tells you what you need to know about 2A basketball.
Good or bad.
Exactly.
It's just fact.
And kind of where it's trending towards. Especially, there's that article about the Chicago public schools, how they're thinking about, closing more schools and redistricting and that can also play with the enrollment and that's kind of,
and you have a lot of the little academies popping up.
Absolutely.
While it's great for academics, because anytime that you can get smaller schools, get the student to teacher ratio down, that's going to help kids academically. And there's zero. I mean, that was one of the pushes. Arnie Duncan, who was former CEO of public schools in Chicago, now went on to be obviously Secretary of Education under Obama. Like when he was in Chicago, was opening these smaller schools, helping the kids out. But then, unfortunate byproduct of that is that you might have some of this gerrymandering when it came to athletics.
Yeah.
Kids moving around to play sports, and anytime you have smaller pools from which to draw, you're gonna spread out. The teams get spread out across the classifications, and you're gonna have situations like we had. And again, I'm on the record saying I don't think it's a bad thing. If Chicago wins all 4 state titles, they've earned it. Those kids on those teams played. They won the games that were in front of them. I don't necessarily think the IHSA needs to. You can't legislate fairness.
No.
They've tried too hard to do that since they expanded to four classes, and this is I don't think it's a trend. I think it's an anomaly. The fact that 4 Chicago teams win a state title, it doesn't happen every year.
No.
If the thing where if it literally happens every year, there's ebbs and flows to all. I mean, Emmanuel, as good as they are, like they've only been. This is their second time to state in 4 years, 3 years. They went in the OT. It isn't like they're there every year. I mean, teams. I don't know. I'm kind of torn when it comes to legislating fairness, because it's like, when do you stop? Like, at what point is it fair enough for everybody? It's never going to be. It's sports.
Right.
You're going to win or a loser. I mean, I don't know.
And then conversely, I mean, all the teams like Nashville and Gibson City, Melvin Sibley, and on the 1A side, Cissna Park, the stories you'd hear from their coaches about, these kids playing from 3rd, 4th, 5th grade on all together, going through middle school, going through high school, and culminating their basketball careers, athletic careers for maybe most of them at the state finals. I mean, that's something that, 4 classes, transfers aside, that's the feel good stuff of the state tournament that you like to see, and in my opinion, I love to see. I mean, that's the great stuff about the state tournament, and the emotion that those coaches show, and those kids up there, and they put their heart and soul into it, and we don't see the process. We only see 2 games of their
Sure, but to play a little bit of I agree with you, but to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I think we sometimes shortchange a school like St. Malfer, for instance, because those guys came here. They were the epitome of a class. I sat next to their bench like just happenstance the 2 days, and they comported themselves with complete class. Their coach many times telling their players to like the right thing. I just thought, I think it's unfair to sort of peg everybody who's in Chicago as some sort of nebulous cesspool that isn't as deserved of a state championship as a Nashville or a Gibson City, just because like those are great stories, but that doesn't necessarily make them better stories. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, absolutely
they can be exclusive of one another. You can like what Chicago or does, and also like what Nashville and Gibson City do.
Absolutely,
they don't have to be opposed to each other. Now, do I wish the kids didn't transfer all over the city? And yes, of course I do.
Right,
but it's unless you put in rules to make it illegal and make it stop doing it. I put the onus more on the parents and the coaches than I do the kids themselves.
Yeah,
they're victims in this. I don't.
The coach has no control over who shows up day one of tryouts.
You would hope so, right?
Yeah.
And if they do, then that's a problem.
Right.
Yeah. But
yeah, no. I mean, the St. Mel especially. I mean, the coach preached, from the teleconference to the semifinal till after the title game is like, I prepared my schedule as such because we knew if we played tough teams, we could be here.
Right.
And sure enough, they were there.
Right. Yeah, and I heard some people in the crowd with Cissna Park saying like, oh, we're the best public school team in the state, or the best team small team outside Chicago, and I'm like, well, so what? Like, you got to state and you played in the state championship. How about say you're the second best team in the state? Yeah, that's these qualifiers are just so. Sometimes it's needless division. I just don't think it's healthy, and it's like show up. It's 5 kids playing basketball, 12, whatever you want to say, 5-on-5. To use the Hoosiers line, 10-foot rims, same as everywhere else. If you don't like them winning, beat them. That's what I say. Like Cissna Park, if you don't like what Chicago Mel's selling, beat them. And you didn't, so you didn't win. Congratulations. I mean, whatever. I'm just tired of the. And if they honestly did break rules, then they should pay for them. But to insinuate that they did just because they're from Chicago, I think is silly. And
no, I agree. The Chicago is definitely painted with a broad brush.
Yes, it is.
When it comes to high school basketball, especially on the boys' side.
If they choose to have open enrollment when they're city schools,
right?
Unless, like I said, maybe that's the situation. They have a multiplier in place for those reasons. Now, we could maybe make the argument that an open boundary school system should have a multiplier applied to it. Maybe, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. Anyway, we'll move on to the 3A, 4A here. Break down we have the matchups 11 a.m. Friday. We got Chicago DePaul College Prep against Chicago Bogan.
Now, is it a benefit or is it hurt DePaul Prep not playing a super sectional?
I don't know. Well, it's a benefit that they got here for sure, getting here, but I don't know. Because by all accounts, I don't know if they necessarily would have been the favorite against a Farragut-Lawndale survivor. For those who don't know, Farragut-Lawndale sectional title game was ruled a double disqualification in very WWF-like terms.
And you know what? I will say something. Lawndale was the host, and I've said this before. I will give credit to the tournament host for contacting the IHSA.
Yeah.
And not just emptying the gym, bringing the teams back out, and playing the final 50 seconds or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's I have to applaud whoever,
right? Yeah.
The AD or the principal or whatever at Lawndale who did that, had the foresight to call Kurt Gibson or Craig Anderson or Matt Troha or whoever it was at the IHSA that they got in contact with, and said, this is.
I believe it was Gibson, but yeah.
Yeah, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. What should we do about it?
Right.
Instead of just saying, okay, we're gonna, we'll just take the fans out of the equation and everything. And then, the appeal, Farragut appealed it.
Right.
Craig Anderson came back with a great statement saying, after reviewing the film, according to National Federation rules, you leave the bench, you're suspended for 1 game. Neither of these teams would have had enough players to field a team for super sectional night.
Right.
But back to what I was saying about DePaul Prep, you're kind of riding that momentum.
Sure.
You win a sectional title, you got 3 days to prepare, whatever, and then you go right into Tuesday night and you win there. You have you probably get back late on Wednesday. You're coming to Peoria already on Thursday, and then you're playing. Whereas DePaul Prep played Friday, and then
they're done. Yeah,
they have a week off to kind of think about things.
I mean, did the DePaul coach talk about that this morning on the teleconference at all? Or?
I actually didn't hear that part.
All right, that's fine.
His part. But adding to yours, it's almost like a team like Manual or these other teams are riding that high.
Yeah.
You get a 3-day high going into that, and it's like, okay, if Manual would have just beat Notre Dame on Friday and that was their game up until state, it's like you're just here. You know,
I
think that would be, it'd be different to just kind of walk into state and not have that feel like you'd wanted to.
Yeah, certainly I don't recall this ever happening.
It happened in a sectional semifinal in 2015.
Look at that.
Lawndale and Marshall. So it was a double forfeit, and that advanced St. Joe's to the Super, but never at the state finals has it happened before. And DePaul Prep's coach, by the way, is Tommy Kleinschmidt of the Hoop Dreams fame, back when it was Gordon Tech.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. Well, that is the first 3A matchup. We have East St. Louis and Manual, of course, at 1 p.m. And then Friday night, Mike Ellis, former Richwoods coach, brings Evanston back, take on Rockford East in the 5:30 semi. And then again, similar to last week, the main event of Friday, I believe, was Nashville Gibson City. Was probably the best semifinal. This one we're going to get Belleville West, the defending 4A champion, against Chicago Curie, who's been the number one most of the year. That's a very, very nice matchup.
Those 4 teams have a combined record of 131-11.
That's incredible.
Unbelievable.
Right, it really is, because normally I've noticed in this 4-class system has allowed more Manual-like teams to sort of squirt through, where you get an occasional 19-11 and 18-10 type teams that make runs late, because it is a little easier to, with the state so splintered with classes, it's a little easier for these teams to get hot and squirt through the state. But to have a field last with those records is pretty impressive.
Even you see a lot of 8 and 6 losses too. Some of those teams 8 or 6 losses.
Yeah, sure,
come
definitely.
in.
That's almost standard now.
Yeah, it is.
You're going to get a field with 2 or 3 teams with 6 or 7, 8 losses. Which back in the day in the 2-class system, I mean, if you saw like 4 losses, you were a little bit, maybe outside of Chicago. I mean, Chicago teams tend to battle each other and play tougher schedules and be less regionalized with their schedules. But all right, you guys have anything to add with that 4A field before we go on to our final?
I just think 4A is just so intriguing. I really do. I think both of those games are going to be really, really competitive, and there's going to be a lot of star power.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go around the horn this week like we did last week, make our picks for 3 and 4A. We'll go 3A first. Adam, who you like a 3A field?
I have to say
wide open.
I have to say Bogan. I mean, kind of by default, them beating Morgan Park. I would put them as the favorite.
Sure. Joko?
I like Bogan too.
I'm going to be a homer. I picked the Rams. I think I like the Rams over Bogan. I think I mean, playing well. They're playing well. They're hot. I mean, my brain's probably telling me Bogan. In fact, my brain might be telling me Bogan over East St. Louis. If I had to, like, for entertainment purposes only, bet on the field, I would probably take a Bogan over East St. Louis title. But somebody's got to say Rams on this podcast. So that's me.
That's Manyo.
4A field. Who you got, Adam?
I like Evanston.
Wow.
I like Evanston. I like Mike Ellis. I think he's prepares.
He's a great coach. One of my favorites to cover over the years.
I think he prepares his team. This team was down here last year. Bunch of juniors and sophomores, and even a handful of freshmen who played. Finished third. Got that experience. Kind of got that hunger. Played a tough overtime game against Stevenson last night. I like Evanston.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be real grinded out 2 games for him, but Belleville West is gonna repeat. I think EJ Liddell is gonna have 2 big games for him. Nice. I like their chances.
I thought I'd be alone in picking Mike Ellis to win this field. I think it's like I think it's more about the way that the field is set up than it is necessarily I don't think Evanston's going to have much of a problem with Rockford East, to be honest.
No.
While that night game is going to be a knockdown, drag it out, and I think going to come back the next day. And I like Evanston. I just like the way Mike Ellis prepares his teams, like you said. He's very Belichickian in that way, where like he'll even go against what he necessarily believes in, just to win it, because it's about winning games at this time of year.
Right.
It isn't about looking good. It isn't about doing what you do best. It's about winning games. And I just really like the way he scouts. I like the way and like you said, he has those two things coming together: the winning third, like you said, a hungry team, a good coach, the way the field is set up. It just feels like it smells like they're going to score through for a. I wouldn't necessarily call it an upset, 31-4, but yeah, I like Evanston too. So with that, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Might be our last one. We might have one more, a little manual recap.
I think we could run it back
next week.
Yeah.
But pay attention all this weekend. We'll have full court press manual coverage, and Bradley, of course. Don't forget the Braves.
Going dancing.
Dave Reynolds on the Braves and John Komosa on the Rams. We'll probably even have like David Minion might even make a non-ice covered Carver Arena appearance.
Cleveland Eve.
A little extra Ram coverage.
It's at pjstar.com/preps. You can follow John on Twitter at AJKOM91. Follow all things Rams.
Hashtag PGS Preps.
Hashtag PGS Preps for all things Preps. For Adam Duvall and John Komosa, I am Wes Huett saying bye for now.